Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
You know what time it is, so sit back and get ready for the Stafford Voice, your dose of conservative in a world of liberal.
3, 2, 1.
You are listening to the Stafford Voice, where we are conservative in a world of liberal. And tonight we're going to talk about looking the other way. We've got a guest tonight. This guy is super passionate about the Constitution and about this country. So we're going to bring him on here shortly. But before we do, I want to remind you guys that there are many ways to listen. So set the channel as a favorite, whatever you have to do so you don't get left behind. Because if for some strange, crazy reason you do miss the show, you'll be able to catch the replay. So just sit tight. There is no need to panic. I've got you. And in the case you aren't already following on social media, find me over on the Twitters at Stafford Voice, or you can look us up on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, the YouTubes, wherever you're at. Just look for the Stafford Voice, and we'll be there. And as a matter of fact, why don't you just, since you're over out on the interwebs, just head over to thestaffordvoice.com, bookmark the site, try and stay up to date. You can just ignore the newsletter things. I'm really bad about getting those out and pushing them. That's a whole different topic. But as I was saying earlier, we've got a guest tonight. This guy really honestly doesn't need an introduction whatsoever. Many of you guys know him on the Twitters. He is at AJM. Let me see. I got to pull it back up because I forgot. At AJM9588. His name's Adam. This guy is a Christian, God-fearing man, first and foremost. Second, he is a hardcore conservative, and this guy just bleeds red, white, and blue. Adam, how are you tonight?
I'm doing fantastic, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing really well. We're about this whole looking the other way thing. You know, I almost really want to look the other way when we have to talk about this, because you brought it up the other day on Facebook about the Republican platform, and I'm going to openly admit to the audience right now, I haven't read the entire thing, but I know you have. We were talking before the show about how they really put together a great document. This platform really was and is good. I've made it almost 20 pages in, and I'm going to finish reading it. But you really hammered something on Facebook, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, I heard from a number of people after the Republican convention that this was, they talked about different portions of this platform and how good it was. And I thought, you know what, I really need to get into it myself and find out. So I just went right onto the RNC website and I downloaded the PDF. I printed it out and I started reading it. And I was very impressed with this platform. And you know, it all goes back to Senator Cruz in his, if you remember, after the primaries in like Nebraska and Wyoming and in those Midwest states, he kept going back to them after he had won. And everybody thought, what is he doing? Why is he going back to those states that he's already won? There's no reason to go back to those states. Well, the reason was those states were still choosing delegates to go to the convention. And those were the delegates that he was winning. Those are the delegates that wrote this platform. And they wrote one of the most conservative platforms I think the party has ever seen. And it baffles me. It boggles my mind that these delegates, I mean, the group of them as a whole, could write this platform, vote on it, and accept it, and then turn around and nominate Donald Trump. And it's just, he is the antithesis of this platform. And I'm telling you, and you will find out as you get into it, how amazing it truly is.
Well, I agree. It was really encouraging as I started to read it how, the first, probably 5 or 6 pages really hammered home the importance of the Constitution and following it and laying things out and making a case for not only conservatism but for America. Very reassuring that they put this out, but at the same time, I think I was doing the same thing that you were doing, and that's taking a look at the Republican nominee. Excuse me, putting it next to the Republican nominee, and kind of questioning what was happening.
Right.
I mean, go ahead.
Well, like you were saying, I mean, you look at the what is it? The 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th paragraph of the preamble of the platform. We believe the Constitution as our founding document. We believe the Constitution was written not as a flexible document, but as our enduring covenant. Like right off the bat, they make no bones about it.
Right.
We are a Constitution first party. Right.
And that was reassuring because there are so many people out there, and almost every single one of them comes from the left, and they try and make that ridiculous claim that the Constitution is some living, breathing document, when it's not. It's fixed in its meaning, and it was very, very reassuring that the people that put this platform together, they touched on it, and they sent a clear message that within conservatism, within the founding of this country, it is a direct relation to understanding and acknowledging that there is a higher being.
Yes. Yes. And to go along with what you were saying there, yes, the Constitution is a fixed document. It is, it's cut and dry. It says what it says. It means what it says. Contrast that with, you mentioned that I am a Christian, and a Christian will tell you that the Bible is not a fixed document. That is a living, breathing book, and God speaks to us through that. You can read the same passage of Scripture over and over and over and over again, and read the same verses and have not really, you understand what the passage is saying, but you don't, nothing really sticks out to you. But then there's that one time that you read through it and you're like, wait a minute, that wasn't in there before. I think God just put that in there. The Constitution is not like that. It's there, and it says what it says, and it means what it means.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and to go a little farther into what they were laying out was touching on even judicial power and going back to the founding of this country and saying, look, these judges shouldn't have that much power, and yet we impose that, and we kind of do it to ourselves by thinking and putting these guys and gals up on such a high pedestal that we allow it to happen. And they drove it home on probably a page and a half that the power resides with the people, nobody else. It doesn't go with the president. It doesn't. Congress has a certain power, and Congress needs to start exerting that power, but that power stays with the people. I was blown away that they spent that much time on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the idea of the people are in control is littered throughout the entire platform. And regarding that, what you were just saying there about the judicial branch, if you look at the I guess you could say the introduction to that chapter of the constitutional government, it says man-made law must be consistent with God-given natural rights, and that if God-given natural inalienable rights come in conflict with government, court, or human-granted rights, God-given natural inalienable rights always prevail. And basically, what they're saying there is, when in doubt, go with God.
Yep.
And that is right there. I mean, like you said, not only is that a focus on, I mean, the title of that section is "We the People," and not only is it a focus on following law, or man making laws, but it's also reaffirming the fact that, like you said earlier, there is a higher being that we need to submit ourselves to.
Right. And that's one of the principles of conservatism. And when you put that next to who our candidate is, and for this election cycle, it's Donald Trump. Without hammering the point too far, I don't really know that he's that God-fearing of a man. I mean, you get out there and if you are anywhere close to having knowledge about Scripture and the books that are contained within the Bible, it's pronounced 2 Corinthians. It's not 2 Corinthians. I mean, and then there's the comment that he made where he didn't honestly think there was a time where he needed to basically go back and repent for anything.
Right.
That just screams in your face. Look the other way. Don't worry about what I'm doing right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk about somebody else. Go ahead.
I wrote occasionally I write for my friend Jared's blog. If anybody has checked it out, it's nighticus.com. And I can throw up a link if anybody wants to see it. But I wrote an article on some reasons why I couldn't vote for Donald Trump, and one of them was, like you had mentioned, the fake Christianity. And you see how he says how he's proud to be a Christian, but all throughout the scriptures, I use the Apostle Paul as an example. I mean, you look throughout his ministry, and the more mature of a Christian that he got, the closer to God that he got, the more he hated himself. And he was very humble about it. He said that God sent him to sinners, of whom I am chief. He's saying, I'm the biggest sinner there is here, and God's sending me to go talk to you. And he said, I have to die to myself daily so that I can serve God. So I think it's I don't know, paradoxical, I guess, to say that you're a proud Christian, whereas in reality, the better the Christian you are, the more humble you become, because you realize just exactly what you are in the sight of God.
Right, and you realize just how imperfect you are. It's
right.
But when you take, and we've talked about this before. Many shows we've discussed how narcissistic Trump is, and Hillary's the same way.
Oh yeah.
A lot of them in Washington are. And that, for the most part, that's one of the reasons why they want to be in office, because they want power. They want to promote themselves. But you look at Donald Trump, and he's so narcissistic and so stuck on himself that the last thing he would ever want to do would be submit to someone that he sees as a lesser than him. Because I think a lot of the people back then thought that they were when Christ walked the earth, that they were higher than him. Here he was, just a lowly person, humble beyond his means. I mean, the guy can walk on water. He can turn water into wine. And everybody else wants to promote themselves. I don't think Donald Trump would be willing to submit himself to true and honest Christianity. I mean, it is hard. It is hard to focus your life on Christ and try to be a good Christian. You fail every day.
It's true.
I just, again, I was, we kind of got a little off topic and got a, hopefully we didn't scare our audience away tonight, but
took a bunny trail there.
Yeah, that's okay. But let's get back to the platform. What really stood out to you that really got you boiling?
That got me boiling? Oh, well, I tell you, the one thing that really got me is there's a whole section in that they wrote in here about Native Americans, and I've had my Twitter rants in the past about this, and I don't know. I know I've talked to some friends on the West Coast, and I don't know how it is for you where you live, but we have issues with Native Americans here all the time. Specifically, they buy land that is off of the reservation, and then they claim it as reservation, and then they demand to have the same tax-free from the government rights on that land as well as everything else. And I don't know as if, like I said, I don't know as if people out west who don't necessarily have to deal with this problem can fully grasp and understand this section of the platform. But there's a whole section that says they basically want to set up Native Americans as their own separate form of nation, their own separate government. They want them to have their own laws. They want them to have their own law enforcement. They want to have their own courts, their own communities, the whole nine yards. And, for some people, they might think that's just all fine and dandy, but I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this is the first step in allowing a Sharia court in the United States. Because I know that Muslims, they go into a country, Islam goes into a country, and they know the laws of that country better than its citizens do, and they will use that. And if they get a hold of this platform and say, well, look, they're letting the Indians do it, and why can't we? Why can't we set up our own Sharia court? Why can't we have our own Muslim communities? And for me, I think that's just a very dangerous grounds to be on in allowing that for the Native Americans as well. I mean, you're looking at, we just recently had a situation here where a Native American purchased some land that was not on the reservation and decided he was going to set up a smoke shop. And he demanded that it be tax-free. Well, long story short, they ended up arresting him on a separate charge of something else that he had done. But his response to being arrested was, I don't have to do what you tell me because I'm a Cuga. I only answer to the federal government. And if we're going to allow them to set up their own government, their own laws, law enforcement, courts, and everything else, I'm just saying that's dangerous grounds to be on. It's a dangerous precedent to set.
I would agree. I haven't made it to that point, but I have a feeling when I do, that it'll be known. But I really want to encourage our listeners to go out and read the Republican platform. Do you, and I want to challenge the listeners, do you really align yourself with what the party has laid out as saying this is who we are and this is what we're going to fight for. Because they lay out a lot of things that they say they want to fight for. But who out there is going to uphold it? Who out there is going to hold their feet to the fire and say, look, this is what you said that you were going to do. This is what you said you stood for. And now you're doing this. Sorry, but I'm going to have a big problem with that. So I encourage anybody that's listening to this or watching on YouTube to go out, find a copy of the Republican platform, read it for yourself. So far, it is a fantastic read. I've only made it about a third of the way in, and so far, I am very pleased. But you're going to be slightly frustrated when you compare it to our nominees. So.
Absolutely. And let me add something to that. If you have a copy of the Constitution, have it next to the platform when you're reading it, because there are several times that they reference specific things in the Constitution. They don't necessarily quote it, but they reference it, and it's good to have it next to you so that you can look it up. I did that. It was a major help. And I would also say, get yourself a pen or a pencil. Underline, circle, highlight, and make notes. That's what I did. I mean, I went through this platform, and there are specific references to things that Governor Walker has done in Wisconsin. There are specific references to things of Senator Cruz from his time in Washington. And if anybody has read his book, you will easily pick up on it. And there's also a section that probably isn't going to be known to most people, but me being from New York, my congressman, John Katko, there's a whole section in this platform on domestic abuse and heroin addiction. Those are two things that he has picked up and has been really championing those issues in Congress and really doing a great work with it. And there was another section that referred to in the Second Amendment rights. There was a section about that I referenced. Here in New York State, we have what the governor calls the SAFE Act, but we on the right call the Unsafe Act. And I think this was kind of a jab at that, where it talks about we support constitutional carry states and salute the states that have passed them, and we oppose ill-conceived laws that would restrict magazine capacity or ban the sale of the most popular and common modern rifle. The governor was in such a hurry to pass the SAFE Act that they forgot to put a provision in it for police and military. They had to go back and write an amendment to the bill so that our law enforcement and military in the state could carry these weapons.
Wow. Okay, Adam, again, thank you so much for agreeing to come on. And I know that you kind of threw it out there and said, hey, I want to talk about this. I know that you are equally as passionate about conservatism as myself and many of our listeners. How can people get in contact with you? Where can they find you?
The best way to get a hold of me is right on Twitter at AJM9588. You can always direct message me on there or just tag me, and I'll be more than happy to engage in conversation.
Okay, and where's that blog at? What's that blog address again?
It is Knighticus.com. It's KNIGHTICUS.com.
Okay, you guys heard it. Go out there, give him a shout out, and read what this guy posts, because he puts out some really good content. I wish I could snag him and get them just to post it over on the site. Maybe we'll get some permission rights to be able to do that. But again, thank you so much for coming on. Maybe we'll be able to have you back on again sometime soon if there's another issue that's passionate. So there's always a standing invitation to have you back on, brother.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for all the work that you do. I tell you, I love listening to these grassroots right-leaning programs because I learned so much more, especially like a few weeks ago when you had Jason on. Wow, that was a pretty powerful episode right there.
Yeah, we're not done with that. I think in the next week or two we're having him back on to we're basically going to take what we talked about during that show and really hopefully be able to try and break it down in how it affects the average citizen here in America, and maybe come up with some ideas that we can safeguard ourselves. So that I'm looking forward to that because I need to know about that stuff.
Yeah, that was really informative. I really enjoyed that one. I can't wait for the next one.
Great. Okay, we will catch you out on the Twitterverse, and until next time, brother, I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, sir. God bless.
You too. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, if you have never engaged with him over on Twitter, I implore you to. His Twitter handle is @AJM. I got to pull it back up because my memory today is horrendous. @AJM9588. I had it right there on the screen. I could have just read it right there. Well, we are going to take a short break, and when we come back, I'm warning you right now, you're gonna need your tinfoil hat for this. When we come back, we're talking about the possibility of the election being taken over by some sort of government agency, maybe? It sounds a lot like some Alex Jones type stuff. And okay, fine, maybe we'll talk about Hillary Clinton when we come back after this break. We'll be right back.
And reason still reign.
Nothing will protect you quite like your sidearm, so why not give it the protection it deserves? Something as strong as the Second Amendment and stands the test of time, and better yet, made in the USA. A Rebel Road Tactical Custom Kydex holster is that and more. Call now and place your order with Rebel Road Tactical at 682-217-4579. Again, 682-217-4579, or online at rebelroadtactical.com. Some crowdfunding sites are too liberal and keep more for themselves. Even worse, if they don't like you or someone gets offended, they'll cancel your campaign. But not at RWNJ Funding. They hold true to conservative and libertarian values. Plus, they won't cave to the PC crowd. More importantly, they believe in you. RWNJFunding.com. The right cause, the right values, done right. RWNJFunding.com.
Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Conservative in a world of liberal.
The Stafford Voice.
I got to figure out this whole transition from on YouTubes and stuff. Hey guys, your host, Daniel Stafford, host of The Stafford Voice. Yes, we're conservative in a world of liberal. Right now, if you're watching on the YouTubes, I know it looks really ridiculous, but I had to get out the tinfoil hat. Hopefully it's not blinding you with all these studio lights. I feel really ridiculous. Almost as ridiculous as the idea that we're going to talk about this. Talking about the idea that the Department of Homeland Security could take over the election. I know, it's something straight out of outer space that you would hear on the Alex Jones show. So, I'm going to do my best attempt to maybe cover this story and refer in reference to Alex Jones. This is my homage. I got that. You hear that? That's my tinfoil hat. Is it not beautiful? Please, I hope nobody screenshots this and shares it, because, I feel so stupid. Anyway, and listen, Alex Jones interrupting the Stafford Voice, okay? And I just want to talk about this. I've got it right here on paper, ladies and gentlemen. It's right here in front of me. If I had an overhead camera, I would be able to show you this. This is mind-blowing that, and it gives validity to everything that we've talked about here on the show, on the Alex Jones show, okay? And it plays right into the global New World Order wanting to take over America and infiltrate from within. I mean, I don't even think the Bilderberg guys would be able to shy away from this. Let's just put it that way. The Bilderberg guys wouldn't even go this far and promote what we're getting ready to talk about. But, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to touch on this, that the FBI, okay, the FBI has identified numerous cyber attacks on 2 separate state election boards. And this really alarms me, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I can't do the Alex Jones anymore. It's... wow. Sorry if that was complete... but if that was just completely mind-numbing. But in all honesty, this is something that really did stand out. When I came across this story about a week and a half ago, it really did kind of concern me that the Department of Homeland Security is considering declaring the election a, quote, critical infrastructure. And the article that I came across quoted Homeland Security's Secretary Jeh Johnson, where he said, quote, "We should carefully consider whether our election system, our election process, is critical infrastructure like the financial sector, like the power grid." And then he goes to say, "There is a vital national interest in our election process, so I do think we need to consider whether it should be considered by my department and others critical infrastructure." So basically, the way I interpret that is... I gotta take off this stupid, ridiculous tinfoil hat. We'll set that off to the side. The way I interpret that, and I see that, is when he says that we need to look at this as though it's critical infrastructure like the financial sector and like the power grid, that the government wants this ability to be able to flip a switch on anything. The internet, for instance. They want to be able to flip a switch and say whether we can do this or do that. They want to be able to have a switch, or at least a hand in the cookie jar, with the financial sector. I mean, we saw that with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac years ago, and how these banks were too big to fail. So we have to do something. So the government steps in, and now it's critical infrastructure that the government is going to be able to have their hands in. Absolutely not. As corrupt as our government is, this is one of the stupidest things that I think they've ever tossed the idea around. Absolutely absurd. Now, it's not as trippy as Hillary Clinton trying to walk off the curb or be pushed off the curb. but it really should cause some alarm. And to have to bring up the whole Alex Jones idea as this being some conspiracy theory, pause and think about what Jeh Johnson said. He's laying the idea and the groundwork that the government needs to be in complete control of how our election process works. That should scare you. It really should scare you to no end. And over in the chat room, Army John said, we're in reference to Jeh Johnson taking over the elections, weird science. I completely agree. It's kind of wacky. I would never be a proponent for the government taking over. Because can you just imagine for a second how crazy it would be for the Obama administration to carry out an honest election? And we're talking completely honest. You know, something you'd be able to... You remember back when he was running for office, he said that he was going to have the most transparent administration. Can you imagine if he would put that same mentality into supervising and overseeing the election process? Wow. Oh boy. So that's kind of where I was going with the whole Alex Jones bit. I mean, I have no ill will towards Alex Jones. He's quite entertaining at times. I actually would like to talk to him about a couple of things, and just to pick his brain on some ideas, and where he stands, and see if my thinking is a little too crazy. I would really like to talk to him about it. Oh my God, Army John, you're killing me. Over in the chat room, Army John, you're killing me. You can't put stuff like that in there because it gets me off topic. But that's a beautiful, beautiful graphic. You need, Army John, if you can, will you tweet that to me and tag me on that? That is... Okay, Army John, we're going to have a talk. I know that you're part of my accountability guy. You're part of my accountability squad. But the fact that you actually did screenshot that is beautiful. Oh, you're killing me. I may have to promote you to my humor department. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to hide those from my wife because she's gonna use them as blackmail at some point. But I tell you what, here's what we need to do. We need to completely change the direction of this show because we got to get back on track. Okay? We are not the wacky liberal guys that go completely off topic and say that they are on topic. So, here's what we're going to do. I'm checking the time and I'm seeing that we've only got about 15 minutes. So, I want to make sure that we have time for both of these segments because you guys not only say that it's your favorite ones, but this first one is my favorite. And that would be Profiles in History. He was one of the wealthiest men in Philadelphia. And when it mattered most, he wasn't afraid to put his money where his mouth was. George Clymer was born in Philadelphia on March 16, 1739. He was orphaned roughly a year later when his mother died. At the age of 7, he lost his father. It was his uncle, William Coleman, who took up the responsibility of raising and informally educating him. Now, Coleman was a wealthy Philadelphian merchant and friend of Benjamin Franklin, and by the time his uncle would pass away, Clymer would be made a full partner in the firm. Soon afterwards, he merged the business with Reese Meredith's to form the firm Meredith and Clymer. The merger didn't stop there. As a matter of fact, Clymer took it one step further, and on March 22, 1765, he married Meredith's daughter, Elizabeth. Together they would have 9 children, 4 of which would die in infancy. And historians are debating right now whether he had at least 1 child or more before marrying Elizabeth. However, George Clymer was a man of his business, so it should come as no surprise that he became motivated by the impact of the British economic restrictions on his business. And in a 1773 town meeting, those present made him chairman of a committee to persuade fellow merchants to refuse to handle tea the British taxed. On July 29, 1775, he was appointed as one of the Continental Congress's first treasurers. And it was his job to help raise money to support Washington's army in Boston. Clymer believed so much in the idea of independence that he would aid in underwriting the war by exchanging his own money for continental currency. Now, believe it or not, when the vote for independence came in 1776, several of Philadelphia's delegates voted against it. They were replaced as quick as possible with patriots that favored independence, one of which was George Clymer. And he became a delegate on July 20th. And even though he was too late to vote, it was his, quote, dearest wish to sign the Declaration of Independence, and on August 2nd, he did. And later that year in December, when the British troops were close enough to threaten Philadelphia, Congress fled to Baltimore. 3 would be left behind to conduct business: George Clymer, Robert Morris, and George Walton. It was exhausting and demanding work. After a few of Washington's victories, Congress returned in March 1777. Now, Clymer's health would cause him to take a leave of absence, and a few months later, in July, Congress called on Clymer to investigate the condition of the Army and the abuses in the commissary department. During his time away on September 11th, 1777, the British were victorious in Philadelphia at the Battle of Brandywine. Afterwards, British troops detoured to Clymer's home, roughly 20 miles outside of the city, to loot and vandalize it and drive his wife and children to hide in the nearby woods. In 1780, he worked with Robert Morris to create the Bank of North America, the first national bank. Clymer left Congress in 1772, and being a family man and having wanted the family to stay together, the whole family would move so his sons could attend Princeton. After moving, George served in Pennsylvania's House of Representatives. One of the key issues he would undertake was promoting prison reform, and he would work to keep the National Bank of North America going. In 1787, he became a delegate in the Constitutional Convention, one of only 6 signers of the Declaration of Independence to do so. He didn't want the Bill of Rights or other amendments to be inserted into the text of the Constitution. He wanted the unaltered text to, quote, remain a monument to justify those who made it. And ultimately he got his wish, as all amendments are appended onto the end of the document. Washington put him in charge of collecting taxes on alcohol. The Federalists thought it was the best option to get the nation out of debt. However, the Anti-Federalists' opinion was that the alcohol taxes reflected those Britain imposed before the war. Many others agreed, some violently, leading to what was called the Whiskey Rebellion. Now, because Clymer was the collector, he was hated. And President Washington called out the militia to put down the rebellion, ultimately leading one of Clymer's sons that was in the militia to be killed in action against the rebels. Reeling from their loss in 1795, George Clymer took his wife on a trip to Georgia to try and negotiate peace between the Cherokee and Creek Indian confederacies and the settlers. It was his opinion that the settlers were the primary cause of tensions, as they had been driving the Indians off their lands without any form of compensation. This negotiation marked the end of his public life, and in his later years he was the president of the Philadelphia Bank, as well as serving in other civic organizations. On January 23, 1813, George Clymer passed away in Morrisville, Pennsylvania, at the age of 73. And that is this week's Profiles in History. Talk about a guy who did more than talk the talk. He walked the walk. Clymer was one of the most wealthiest people in the area, and in order to help finance the Confederate, or not the Confederate, but to help finance the war efforts, he exchanged his own money, risking losing it all if they lost, and risked the life of one of his sons, helping fight for what they stood for and what they believed in, that we should have little to no taxes, and the ones that we should have should be they shouldn't be a burden on society. Just a fascinating person to research. Again, his name was George Clymer, for those of you that want to dig a little deeper. Checking my time, and we have enough to get this underway. That's right. By that sound, it's time for Who Said That? That was my little finger thing. If you're watching on YouTube, I was focused. I'm watching the screen, and I don't even know what it was. Anyway, if you're new to the show and you're either watching for the first time or you're listening, Who Said That is our final segment of the show. And it doesn't matter whether it's a conservative, a liberal, a libertarian, Republican, or Democrat. It doesn't matter. If you are out there saying something so completely ridiculous, proving without a shadow of a doubt that you are stuck on stupid, yeah, well, we're just going to highlight it, and we're probably going to make fun of you. This week, I just want to shake my head in shame. This is absolutely absurd. Here, you guys judge for yourself. Check it out.
rest, and you absolutely cannot get sick. This weekend, after attending a 9/11 memorial in New York, after more than a year of relentless campaigning, the Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton fell ill. And these pictures have boomeranged across the world. Several hours later, the campaign revealed the former Secretary of State had been diagnosed with pneumonia on Friday. But surely this can't be a case of a human being having an off day. Nope. Like so many things, Hillary, the media are having a field day, off to the races with another debilitating case of indignant outrage. This must be another typical Clinton conspiracy to fool them with a total transparency breakdown. Talk about transparency breakdown. What about Donald Trump's tax returns? Where are they? Can't a girl have a sick day or two? Don't get me started, because when it comes to overqualified women having to try 100 times harder than underqualified men to get a break or even a level playing field, well, we know that story. And seriously now, the 14th president of the United States, Franklin Pierce, rose to that role after earning the nickname Fainting Frank for twice collapsing in 2 battles in 1847. Who can ever forget George Bush Sr.?
Okay, I'm just going to stop it right there because I can't listen to CNN's Christiane Amanpour any longer. Her fake accent is atrocious. And the idea that we have to even talk about Hillary's health goes to show that everybody cannot move forward on women's issues. I mean, this is really a slap to the face of women all around. And I mean, can a girl get a sick day? Yeah, you can have a sick day, but that lady is living a sick day every day. I'm not gonna dive deep into talking about, you gotta do the Blaine and Antoine finger. Around the world in 2 snaps. There you go, Army John. You have to admit, Army John, you thought I was too young for that. I grew up watching In Living Color. Absolutely loved the show. My favorite was Homie the Clown, because Homie don't play that. Anyway, don't get me off topic. Okay, here's the thing. I don't want to talk about Weekend at Hillary's. That was a horrendous remake of Weekend at Bernie's. Okay, so I'm not even going to go there. Conspiracy theorists are like Wonder Twin powers activating right now. There's a body double. Oh my God, Hillary Clinton has a neurological issue. She does, yes! Liberalism is a mental disorder. We have proven that time and time again. But the idea that we need to give her a break because a girl needs a sick day. Oh. Buck up. You want to be the president of the United States? Let's get on with it, okay? You don't have time for sick days. The American public is in dire need of a leader. Obviously, I don't think that's what we're going to find in you, but we need leadership. We need somebody that can right a lot of the issues that are in front of us right now. You know, and forgive me for getting a little off topic, but it fits. When CNN's Christiane Amanpour says to look the other way, don't look at Hillary Clinton for what she is. Turn a cheek and look the other way. That's what got us into the last 15 years of chaos. 15 years ago, on September 11th, we were proven how vulnerable we are as a nation. Everybody was taken to their knees. The country wept. The next day, on September 12th, the country was united more than ever. This country hasn't been united that strong in I don't know how many years. You probably need to go all the way back to the convention, the Constitutional Convention, or as united as they were when they were declaring their independence. For us. You didn't have people sitting down and refusing to salute the flag or refusing to stand for a guy that wears a badge and risks his life. Or you didn't see people pointing fingers at and saying vile, ridiculous things to the men and women who put on safety gear to run into those buildings and save people. Oh, hell no. That didn't happen. We were united as a country. Everybody always says never forget when it comes time to 9/11. The thing we need to never forget is how united we were the day after. And with that, I'm done. It's too late in the evening for my blood to get boiling this much. And congratulations, bravo, Christiane Amanpour, for being this week's whack job. You've got serious issues, sister. Maybe you need to call in sick. Anyway, you know what? That's all the time we have for this week. And God willing, the Stafford Voice will be back next week. You can follow me over on the Twitters at Stafford Voice. Look me up on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, wherever you're at. Just search for the Stafford Voice. Be sure to subscribe over on the YouTubes so you know exactly when we go live, and you can follow our vlogs whenever we get time to get them posted and go out and do fun stuff. Email your questions, comments, or concerns to thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. Thank you so much for your time, and until next week, thanks, and God bless.